The TwoPot retirement system, which officially kicks off on the 1st of September, was originally meant to have started on the 1st of March earlier this year. In the run-up to this possibility, the retirement fund industry was extremely concerned that they would not be able to change their systems in time to be ready for the 1st of March. More so, as certain legislation had not yet been passed in order to give the industry the go-ahead to make the necessary changes. Ultimately, a political decision was taken for this new system to go ahead by the 1st of September. So questions do remain around how well the industry has geared itself up to this new dispensation. Well, to discuss further, I'm joined in studio by Kanyisa Mkhize. She's the CEO of Sanlam Corporate. Thank you so much, Kanyisa, for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So when we reflect, I think it was towards the end of last year when the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, said, Noma Kanjani, we're going to go ahead and the TwoPot system must come into effect on the 1st of September. Already the industry had worries about the 1st of March. Now it was, pushed out to, 6 months later. And there were a number of concerns for you, and I think I highlighted a little bit in the introduction. Just give us a sense of what the concerns were at the time.
Thank you once again for having me here. It's wonderful to have these kind of dialogues, and we as an industry are also excited in the build-up to the TwoPot system. I suppose if I'm honest, our journey with this particular reform goes back a longer way than the end of last year. I think we've started the engagements with the policymakers, if my recollection is correct, 2020, 2021. And I think a lot of the impetus behind the conversation was, in fact, the financial distress a lot of South Africans were finding themselves in post and during COVID. And I suppose it was an engagement between ourselves and the policymakers in terms of how can we relieve South Africans in the context of the many emergencies that they were facing. But I want to say that, for us, as the pension funds industry, our purpose, and our primary reason for waking up and going to work is to make sure that South Africans can retire comfortably and with some form of dignity. And so you have to acknowledge that it is difficult for us to put at risk that comfort and that dignity. And for many instances, going in and creating access to these retirement savings does, increase the likelihood that some South Africans may not be able to attain that ultimate goal or that objective about being able to retire comfortably. So that was something that was difficult for us as an industry is, do we create this kind of leakage? Do we put, even more pressure on the ability of South Africans to be able to get to that place? But I suppose what in the engagements and when we eventually got to that place where we were able to reach some form of agreement with the policymakers is we also as an industry have to acknowledge that sometimes life happens. People come up against unexpected events. They come across, emergencies in the context of, loss of a loved one. Even natural disasters can put, families at risk. And we did need to come up with something that acknowledged those realities of South Africans, but also didn't lose sight of the long-term savings objective. And I think that's what we've been able to do now in the construct of the TwoPot system. It does put, some kind of flexibility and emergency relief in place, but it also, and this is the part that people don't talk about, it does create a mechanism to close out the savings gap through the introduction of compulsory preservation, which is the thing that I think as an industry will make the biggest difference in terms of our ability to get to this comfortable retirement, to make sure that more people are living with dignity. So I think it is something that we do herald, is that we've been able to finally get compulsory preservation through.
So Kanyisa, of course there were industry concerns and you had to hit the ground running in terms of, building up the building blocks towards being ready for the 1st of September. What sort of processes have you had to go through to ensure that you're ready as Sanlam and no doubt the industry?
This is a significant reform. We speak about it in the office, and it's probably the most significant reform since the introduction of defined contribution funds versus defined benefit funds. And so it's taken quite a lot of work in terms of just making sure that our systems, our processes, our technology, our members are actually educated as it relates to what this reform now means. We'd always sort of engaged around, how much time we thought as an industry we'd need, and we'd always signaled to the policymakers that 12 months once the legislation has been finalized and promulgated, we can then get into a place where we are actually comfortable and ready. But I suppose we haven't had the 12 months. and I think because we understand the need out there and how many South Africans are already feeling the pressure in terms of needing some kind of debt relief, some kind of relief from some of the emergencies that they're currently facing. I think we've also had to come along and come to the party, to say what can we do to make sure that on the 1st or the 2nd of September, which is the Monday, we are in a state where we can comply with the laws of the land and support our members that definitely need this kind of relief from an emergencies perspective. So we've worked really, really hard. I think we have built the plane while flying the plane, and will continue to do so because, there are refinements that are already happening in the legislation that we'll also need to comply with. I suppose my plea to our members and to South Africans at large is to say, you know what, there will be some teething problems, there will be challenges. We can't anticipate the level of the volumes, and I suppose it is a plea for grace and patience. If you can bear with us, we are working on it, and we will make sure that we continue to improve our systems, refine our capabilities to make the experience as seamless as possible. But, as things stand, we will do our best. We're working very, very hard, but there is still that's not yet finalized or unknown, but we will be ready on the 2nd of September.
Very quickly, for your pension fund members who want to take advantage of it, how will they approach you? Will they, is there an email address? Do they go to the website? What do they do?
Look, I think to make this new reform as intuitive and as simple and as convenient as possible, we've invested quite a bit in digitizing our capabilities. So, putting front and center straight through processing. We are encouraging our members to use our member apps and our member portals, not only just for their own convenience, but also to keep the costs of this transactional capability down. I think affordability will also be a key consideration in the industry. And so we've tried to come up with solutions that balance that affordability, that convenience, and that straight-through processing, please. So please engage us on our apps in as far as possible.
Excellent. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Kanyisa Mkhize. She's the CEO of Sanlam Corporate. The ANC in Johannesburg held its regional lekgotla this past weekend. Its officials are about to make public the outcomes of that meeting. It was during this lekgotla that Joburg Executive Mayor Dada Morero suggested that documented foreign nationals would assist Johannesburg Metro Police Department